women career, maybe it's more difficult because of the bias, because of less opportunities.
Sure. So it's more about the engineering mindset that you are looking for rather than the experience in the specific technologies that you are using.
For me, it's important to have a good understanding approach in new topics and be curious about stuff. The most successful scenarios where AI is used is for automating the boring stuff. And you have to build something with AI inside just to be cool.
So we are up. Hi Gilberto, how are you today?
Hi, I'm fine, and you?
Not too bad, thank you. I'm already excited to have these conversations. So we have today with us Gilberto Taccari, who has a wealth of experience in the FinTech and generally software industry. So you worked in a bunch of places. In the meantime, you found your own company and you spent a lot of time in FinTech. And we wanted to talk about it today, to tap into your experience in the FinTech industry, in the software engineering industry in general. Maybe talk about it a little bit, and maybe more generally also talk about the role of the CTO and its challenges. Does it sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. So before we do that, maybe what we could do is if you could give us, a brief overview of your career and maybe main inflection points, so our, viewers and listeners can have a little bit of a background story about, yourself.
Sure. I can tell more about myself. Well, I'm Gilberto, as you said, and currently I'm the CTO of TOT. TOT is an Italian fintech that offers a platform to support small and medium enterprises in Italy with their finance management. We offer a bank account, we offer cars, and we offer external services that configure us not only as a challenger bank but as a platform. So we don't have just banking products, but we also offer some additional services such as the possibility to request multiple cards for collaborators, or the possibility to check electronic invoices, make the linking between your expenses and electronic invoices, etc.
And you are working, most of your career, you worked from Italy, is that correct?
Yeah.
So is that like, having from your story, it seems like there is a quite vibrant community of, startups and companies, especially in FinTech in Italy?
Well, in Italy in general, I think no. I would say no, but in Milan, yes. Milan is the, not only for FinTech startup, but also is the, I would like to say that is the financial capital in Italy, because it's the main city where you can find many banks or other companies related to the finance. So there is a great community related to the fintech in Milan. But yeah.
Got it. So is it fintech specifically or startups in general in Milan?
No, fintech. I think that startups then are spread also in other cities.
Well, thank you for this, background story. And from your perspective, now as a CTO or earlier as an engineer, what are the, specific challenges in this particular industry in fintech, right? From the technological perspective.
Yeah, from the technological perspective, I think that fintech is, since more or less 10 years, so my career in the fintech is a buzzword. I think that technology was between the financial processes and companies since the beginning. We still have some companies that use COBOL as a programming language that is pretty old. And but during my career, given that I had the opportunity to work on, let's say, incumbents, so established banks and also fintech. there are some constants that I've seen. The first one is to test a lot the application, because we in the sector we are managing money, so it's pretty important to have a robust code and prevent errors, because at the end there are some customers that see that something that are pretty, let's say, sensitive about something that doesn't work because it's about money. And so in all the contexts I've seen a lot of testing, even manual or automatic. In the, let's say, the legacy companies maybe have dedicated teams for manual testing the stuff, but when I moved to the startup sector and FinTech, I've seen many more automatic tests, because small companies such as startups cannot afford a whole team of testers and manual testers. So, and this is one thing that I've seen. And the other challenge that I see in this sector is to keep in mind that there are regulations, and we are in Europe, so there are regulations about the personal data, such as the GDPR. But in the financial industry, there are more regulations, and they can be for certain people challenges or limitation to the innovation. I don't consider them limitations, because you can innovate even with some certain regulations, and you must innovate also because of regulation. So I see that this is another, let's say, challenge, because you have to keep informed and understand well the regulation and how your code can fit with it, how your architecture can fit with it, how your product requirements can work for both your customers and the regulators. And this is another challenge. And this is the main challenge, I think, and the main advantage for startups, because incumbent players in the financial industry in general had more slow approval processes, very old teams responsible for regulation and compliance and etc. And startups are more agile, so understand well the limitation and find the solution without a whole hierarchy of approvals. And probably the one of the challenge that is the regulations are also a key advantage or an opportunity for startups.
So that's an interesting thing, because you mentioned in your answer these those regulations, also security concerns, because you are dealing with money, because you are dealing with sensitive personal information. And I was wondering, how do you deal with that, especially for instance, as a small company, when you worked at startups and a startup, when you found your own company, like typically, and I'm asking this question specifically because typically those small companies can compete with larger existing companies because of the, as you mentioned, speed of innovation, or speed of delivery, speed of testing the ideas with customers. And I was wondering, how do you connect this, and how do you deal with this in the environment when there is such a need, as you said, for testing, for regulation, and generally for security?
Well, I think that's dealing with that. It's more think of it's connected to the way that you you take care of these aspects. I think that in my personal experience, I think that when it comes to the regulation, there are people in the teams that are responsible for the product, and so they are the main, let's say, responsible for collecting all the requirements, and are also able to summarize the requirements and tell which they are to the developers. I think that the good approach to handle with regulation is to understand the laws and then be able to communicate them to the whole team. My best experiences in my career are the ones where I had the opportunity to work with teams where there were a very good communication, and also the developers were able to communicate with product people. So don't talk in terms of programming code, but in terms of domain experts, because I want that developers are also experts about the domains they work on, even if they are pretty good technicians. And so one approach to face with the challenge of regulation is to share the knowledge and understand what the regulation mandates. And then I think that when you are able to understand the problem, the law, you are able to build the code and your architecture that works and fits with that regulation. In terms of testing and what I'm obsessed about testing, automatic testing, because I don't like to make something manual. And so I tried in all my steps, in all my career, to push for automatic testing. And it can also prevent some, let's say, regressions during the implementation and the evolution of your product. And there is a funny stuff about that, because when I started building my own test, automatic test, in my first experience, and there wasn't a culture of test, and it was a nightmare for other developers, because to evolve the code they had to disable the test. It was a nightmare for me too, because when you see that's something that is deleted, so remove the test to develop fast. However, so for testing, I push a lot for automatic testing. It's not always possible or easy, and so sometimes we come back to manual testings. And for security, this is I consider this also a cultural aspect. In this case, I think that the role of the CTO or other technical leaders is crucial, because in a startup, unless the startups works in the security industry, you see security as and I'm not saying a limitation, but I say, okay, we want to implement feature for our customers. We want to push for new features, and
sort of like an annoyance, right? You want to, in a way, for some people, because you understand the reasons, but it makes things a little bit slower to think about everything.
Because in the happy path, you can ignore security, because you say, okay, everything will go well, and nothing bad will happen. But in the reality, and it happens. And so for the security, it's more in a startup, especially, it's more let's say a kind of responsibility of the developers and the technical leaders to push for implementing some all the security aspects that fintech platform needs, and my approach is to share the culture of make code robust and safe. So this is the way that the approach with this challenge for security. So make share the knowledge about it and the culture to include security by design.
Right. Is there something like that? You mentioned this automation and that you are a big proponent of automating testing. Is there something like over automating, as in? Do you think that leaving some things for manual testing is valuable?
Yeah. I think that's valuable, especially when there are some cases that are hard to test automatically. Or just to make an example, where if you want to test a whole payment flow in our application, for example, or other ones, you have to receive one second factor to approve the payment or other steps. So often for certain cases the manual test is valuable, and in certain cases it's, let's say, better to do manual testing because the code under the hood will change often. And especially for so, for example, front-end parts, and you just want to adjust something and you test it if it works. And but for what concerns also all the business logic, I push a lot for automatic test, because it allows to get more times to implement new stuff, to enjoy the daily work, if we can consider that a person can enjoy the work. But it's true.
And in a way, I presume part of the quality, which is brought by having a good suite of testing, is also the security aspect. I assume that some of the problems that you may not be able to detect if you don't have automated testing may result in some data leakage or something like that. So that is a security aspect, and we mentioned that that's important thing in a fintech industry. So from that, maybe from that angle, given those characteristics of the industry, are there, from your perspective, any methods or tools? And I'm thinking about things like, for instance, functional programming, or strong typing, for instance, like for instance in Scala programming language, or maybe even like in like Haskell or something like that. I'm talking about the languages that put a lot of effort into making sure that you can build this compilation time safety, like that your business logic is encoded in types so you can avoid certain kind of errors. Do you think, so that was just an example, do you think there are some specific tools that in fintech industry that, from the perspective of what you said, security, quality and things like that, are better than others?
Well, I think that there aren't some specific tools, but I give more, let's say, weight to the engineering approach. However, there are some some approaches that are better than other ones. And for example, in all my career, I used typed programming languages, and because I started with Java, and because it was the programming languages for services in the banking sector, right. And it's still that language is still the language for the banks. However, So what I think is that there are some aspects that allows to make to implement more robust and secure code. For example, using a programming language that supports types, a strong typing system, and also here in Thought we are using functional programming, for example, and I have seen that with functional programming and Typescript as a language we use, I see that there is a kind of better mindset, in my opinion, respect to people that don't use such kind of technologies, to think about the business logic. For example, with a properly implemented application with functional programming, you have to consider all the path, because the data types such as header or other elements force you to think about the whole business logic and not say, right, I can put a null or other weird stuff that exists in other languages. And I think that it helps. It also helps because of composability of different functions. So any developer or any company can build its own tool set of functions that can compose and reuse. And I think that this paradigm can help to build a mindset for that moves the developers to write good code or good quality code. This is what I think about the functional programming in the technology. So I think in the fintech industry, using typed languages and using languages that are, let's say, stable and have a lot of libraries can help to build to face the challenges of the sector.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that is it correct that your main stack is based on TypeScript, both front end and back end?
Yeah, it is.
It's an unusual choice, right? For functional programming and TypeScript. Could you, maybe shed some light on how did you, pick up this particular, choice as a sort of the language to back up your, to be the backbone of the services that you build?
Well, it's not common, but and I think that if I didn't found Thought, so I wasn't the first developer. So I found this. I found TypeScript. I found functional programming, and I had experience with both of them in the past. And what I think about these technologies is that it works in this sector, and the way that I approached it, it's more about let me understand how it works and how the people started working with it, because given that it isn't common, apart the core developers that build the core part of Thought, of the application, other developers who joined didn't know functional programming and had a different approach with TypeScript. Some of them even using TypeScript as a first programming language. So they knew it, but it wasn't the first language. And So what I found is that this approach worked because people can easily start thinking in function terms. So think about the function, and in this way, I also find another interesting aspect is that given that the approach is not common and people came from other contexts, languages, and frameworks, I also found that any developers that joined Tot brought from other experiences their own knowledge, approaches, and way of thinking, and moving them to, let's say, a new language at the end, even if they knew Typescript, but maybe not FPTS, that is the functional programming library that we use. I found functional programming at our code base as a place where they can express their own knowledge in a different language. So without any previous constraint or limitation, that they put the knowledge within our code base using this new language, a new way, new approach. And I found it useful because I also experienced it, because I say, okay, in the past I used other languages. How can I put what I found useful in other languages in this code base without changing the language? And I also find this useful because the developer, the engineer, doesn't think in terms of the language, but in terms of the design of the software, and it makes also the growth of the person more stable, constant, and steady. So this is my way of thinking about functional programming. It's not common. It was a choice for Tot at the beginning, but at the end I'm finding it that's working, and also an opportunity for people that join our team and people that still works in our team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, a lot of people know generally, JavaScript ecosystem and TypeScript specifically. I was just thinking that these, the mixture of, TypeScript and functional programming language is a little bit less common, although, it's probably fair to say that in the recent years, it's gaining traction, definitely. As you mentioned, there are libraries, popping out, there are things happening, and there is more companies focusing on this area. So yeah, I mean, like, it's especially interesting, as you mentioned, that the fintech industry is pretty much based on the JVM to the large extent in Java, and you picked sort of a different approach. So yeah, good that it's working for you. Now, I'm thinking about that. You mentioned a couple of different things. One was those, we just talked about this mixture of TypeScript and functional approach. But then you mentioned also this focus on automation and testing and basically, quality, security. And also you mentioned that you require, you'd like to have your engineers, or you have the engineers who have a lot of the focus on the domain. So they have also, apart from the technical skills, they need to have focus on the domain they are working on. How do you find it difficult to recruit the right people with the mix of all these skills? It seems like a lot, right? Like, there's a lot of different requirements, and it's always in the software industry it's difficult to find great engineers. How do you manage that? How do you find the engineers to work at Tot?
Well, finding the right engineers is always hard, I think. It doesn't depend on the sector.
Hardly expensive.
Yes, I think that it's going to be over the years. It seems that it's always harder. However, finding the good engineers in SOT is pretty difficult because of the technologies that we use. So if we have to find candidates that know both TypeScript and functional programming, we are going to, let's say, not tire at all.
And also that no FinTech, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit joking about, but it's really hard to find people with those characteristics, with their skills on those languages and practices. However, I think that the way to find the good fit with a company is to apart from reaching some candidates with post online with opening position, but to find good candidates, I think that the better approach is to provide an environment where they can grow. So you can offer a good environment to work, and you can offer good technologies apart from salaries, and to find them, I'm pretty focused on the way they think, because in our hiring process there is a step that involves the front end or back end lead, and then when I talk with the candidates, because when they interview them, it's just to understand the way they think. To find the good ones, I think that what I look for is the approach to think about the problem, and that it's not only about problem solving, that it's another often used word, but it's more importantly to be able to understand a problem, to think about possible solutions to the problem, to also share the ideas with another person. So I look for that, and more than the technical skills that are important, but for me it's important to have a good understanding approach in new topics, and be curious about stuff. So this is the way that I find the engineers.
So it's more about the engineering mindset that you are looking for, rather than the experience in the specific technologies that you are using.
Yeah, because technologies that can change, and but what is more important is that you are able to face issues with or build something, because I don't want to put everything as a challenge or face challenges, but it's more about building something new, building stuff, and it doesn't care the technology. What it cares is the approach that you have. So yes, I think that the right engineer can study and learn a new technology, but a good technician doesn't always be able to approach a problem or understand deeply one domain. And right. Probably there is also a kind of bias in this evaluation, because I say that my career is 100% in the financial industry and FinTech, because I really appreciated and I really loved the sector, and It's a fun fact that I started to make some investments because at the beginning of my career I worked on applications that moved stocks, so financial instruments for a bank. And this is also a kind of bias, but I think that when you understand the domain and you can talks in terms of domain concepts without talking about domain-driven design, but when you're able to understand and explain the sector where you work and the problems with the right terms, you also find what I was telling you before about communicating with the rest of the team, with the product managers, product owners, and share the knowledge with the same language. So it's important. Then the technology, the good engineer can learn a new language, a new framework, a new paradigm. So it's less important to me to know a specific language, for example.
Right. So it's like a combination. The one thing is, obviously the technology and knowledge in itself, but then what you mentioned is this engineering broader mindset and the skills to deliver something. So there is I guess something like a pragmatism, engineering pragmatism that is important. And the last thing is this communication, which is, by the way, often overlooked. I think there's many conversations online, like happening from time to time. Every now and again, someone comes up with this question: what is more important for engineers, soft skills or hard skills or tech skills, right? And all different people have different opinions about that. And I think that what you're saying is that just maybe not that the soft skills are more important, but they are definitely important for the engineers to be effective, at least at the company, at Todd. So the one thing that I think is the part of it is that, unfortunately, technical skills, at least from my perspective, they are easier to test. When you start to talking with someone, during interview, during recruitment process, technical skills, like you give some task, you ask some technical questions, there is usually some answer that is more right than the other, so you sort of can assess it. How do you assess those other aspects, though? It seems like it was always for me like a thing, and we are still, not saying struggling, but we are still evolving as a company to do the good recruitment process, because we also found out that those other aspects, how you deliver, how practical you are as an engineer, then the other soft skills, how do you communicate, how do you work with the team? These are important aspects, but they are more difficult to assess, especially if you have limited time, like 1 or 2 hours. How do you do that?
Well,
any tips?
What I do, it's to, let's start during my interview is just I introduce myself, and then I say, okay, we are going to talk an hour about what you do, what I do, and something like that is more, let's say, a friendly approach. And to test that, I often ask to the candidate, given that the candidate already had interviewed by the tech lead, so I'm not even the one that is more expert on some technological aspects connected to the language. But when I interviewed them, what I asked them is to tell me what they do, on what they are working at the moment. Try to communicate what are you doing in terms that I can understand. Mm-hmm. And this is my approach, because especially with, let's say, the mid level or junior level, they often talk to you about the technologies that they use, the technological stack, etc. But with more senior people, so the people that we are talking about, if you want to hire the good engineer with a good fit, I asked them to tell me more about their job and the problems that they faced. I often ask the sector where they work, and apart from candidates that came from the same industry I worked, other ones are from other industries that I don't know. So I'm pretty curious to know about the new stuff, and I evaluate their soft skills, trying to understand the sectors that work on, asking questions. Okay, you did this, but why? But cannot it happen that this fact or this item can change the logics? And I see how they reply to me, and this is the approach. I impersonate the role of the technician that wants to understand a new domain, and they are the ones that have to explain me their domains. And I really find this pretty useful, because it's not about I'm asking you questions to evaluate you if you are good or not on specific technologies or a specific approach in solving some issues. I ask also that, but it's more about, okay, tell me what you do and try to explain me something that I should not know. And I can also ask stupid questions because I don't know the domain, and then have to explain me that. And the more they are able to teach me something new, the more I appreciate that. I want to hire people that know more stuff than me.
Right. And that's, by the way, that's one way how you can make those, interview process also a learning experience for yourself, right?
Yeah.
You learn something new every time. Yeah. And that's an interesting approach. Like, not only you check the communication, but you also check, because you said that the other factor that you care about is the engineers knowing the domain. And obviously there are some engineers who don't care that much about the domain they work in. They just want to have technical, challenges to deal with. And you are checking that, because if they are to describe, the industry or, the problem space they were working in, they have to know something about the domain. So it also shows you, I guess, that they are interested in the domain they are working in.
But however, I'm not saying that I will reject all the people that are good technicians. I want also to learn something new from those people. So they use it a framework, a library, a service that I don't know. Okay, tell me how it works. I don't know it. You have to convince me to use it, and you say, or so teach me something new. And I see that. So a good technician, I expect that knows very well some technologies, and she or he is also able to communicate, to explain, to tell me about the technology, the framework, or the service. So it's I use this approach because I found it useful both for me and the candidate, because a good candidate should also, a good senior candidate should also be able to communicate effectively some concepts.
Got it. So it doesn't have to necessarily be domain. It can be something else. Yeah. So you mentioned that it's becoming, over the years, it never was easy to, to hire good experienced engineers, and it's becoming more and more difficult. You see, given that we had these, I think we had some sort of the, hype, or at least, the peak of the market. That's what people say in terms of, in terms of the demand for engineering between, I guess, 2020, maybe 2021 to 2022. You see that is it more difficult or less difficult than it was back then to hire engineers, or is it about the same? Do you see any trends?
Well, I'm seeing now that it's pretty difficult, and I think that partially is related to our technologies, even if they are not so crucial, but it's pretty difficult to find also TypeScript developers that are good. And I don't know if I know that the peak was in the past because of COVID and other stuff. We had all the companies working remotely and everything was digital. And what I see now is that it's difficult, and there are valid candidates. In the past, also in those years, I was more lucky with hiring, but it wasn't very high that we used Java, so I think that there are many more developers than TypeScript. But I think it's pretty much the same. I don't see a lot of changes, apart from the fact that during the pandemic period, many developers rise in their roles, and probably now you look for experienced engineers that don't want to be, let's say, a senior engineer because they are preferring to have another role because they grow a lot in other circumstances. And then what make me a bit sad is that there are some engineers that say they are senior, but in the end they don't have this great seniority. And I don't know if it's caused by the big hiring flow in the past years. I don't know. I really don't know. But I found it.
Yeah. Maybe that was because of these, the peak, hiring that happened, and there was a lot of these inflation.
Yeah, probably.
Of levels happening, various industries, and I think some of those people are, because of that, are a little bit stuck right now in their roles, because if they want to move somewhere else, it suddenly feels like they are not, perceived as being senior, and yet in their companies they are senior, so they are stuck. And well, it's the problem that it's gonna solve itself. I think if people staying in this company sufficient time, eventually they'll gain, if they will be learning, they'll gain a lot, enough experience to justify this senior position somewhere else. But there's also the other aspect, which is, I think, happening, that a lot of, that's what we are seeing in terms of the recruitment. A lot of people had some, salaries increase that happened over the last years. And for some of these people, it's difficult to find another role in a different company where they would earn more money. And let's be honest, most of people, when they are changing job, they are looking for at least 20% rise in the salary. Like, you need to be very, very unhappy in your role to accept a lower salary or even similar sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I also seen that.
So you mentioned, this peak of different, a peak of combination of different, skills, requirements, the way how you recruit. What I'm also seeing is that, I don't know how it's in Italy, but I see it in Poland and generally throughout Europe. And there are more and more companies, like big tech or Silicon Valley companies. And I'm talking big names, not necessarily, the big, Meta or Google, but even those companies like, for instance, Dropbox and, Palantir, big tech companies, I think that in the past they didn't have that many offices throughout the world, and they were mostly hiring in US. And what I'm seeing more and more is they open more and more centers, development centers in Poland, in Europe, in various countries. And that is something that definitely changed in the last few years, maybe 5 years. And I was wondering, as a company, as where you work at TOT, how do you compete with those big companies? Like, it's difficult, as far as I understand, to compete money-wise or the compensation-wise, because those big tech companies have a very large budgets in terms of the full compensation package, which goes through salary, stock options, or whatever they have. How do you compete with that? What are the things that you focus on in terms of what you offer employees? And I'm not talking necessarily about the money. I'm talking about the overall picture. Like, how do you make people wanting to come to TOT and work at TOT instead of big tech?
Well, I think that's also my interviews I had in the past months. People that approach to TOT do that because they look for a startup, for a company that is not static and can evolve easily and quickly, and so we can compete on that, because I know ex-colleagues that started working for big tech companies with a very huge salaries, but then they left. I don't know if because they become rich or because for other reason, but they say that they didn't find there the same mindset of startups. And I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't verify that, but what I'm seeing is that we attract people because we are startups, and often people get bored in big corporates with long processes and no innovation or slow innovation. So you are able to propose new stuff, a new technology, but you have to wait a chain of approvals before you put something on the code. And this is one thing that we offer. We offer a dynamic context where at the moment any developer counts a lot, because we are not so many, and so we offer that. We offer the velocity of a startup, the possibility to try something, make also mistakes, but we can revert and go back with another with the previous approach if it was better. And then what we offer is a very young environment, because all the developers are young, or I'm getting older. And I think that I want to say that we offer is that we offer an inclusive environment. A good percentage of developers are female, and I really like that, because I've seen other companies where the tech department is completely full of males. And,
tech bros.
Yes, in general, the tech bros, the STEM sector is not very. I don't know about in Poland, but in Italy it's pretty dominated by males, and
Same here.
in some way it also limits the creativity or the perspectives. And here in TOT I'm pretty proud of the fact that we also have some females in the team, and they are a good percentage in the tech team, but the product team in general. And there is a kind of right combination that lead us to a good way of thinking the product. So a very inclusive environment where people are free to talk about, propose stuff. Also the junior that joined Tot can also say something, propose new stuff, talks directly with the CTO. We are a startup, so there is no big hierarchy. And I appreciate that. I communicate that to the candidates during the interviews. So even the people that at the end decide for another job, another offer, I found that pretty happy to talk with me, and I can feel that, because even if a candidate is talking with me because she or he wants a job, I can feel if she or he enjoyed the talk or not. So this is one thing that I communicate a lot during the interviews, this inclusiveness and the possibility of propose new technologies, and that we are pretty fast to test something, and we are I don't want to say obsessed by customers, because I don't believe that we should be obsessed in any way, but we take care of the customers, and I communicate that. I think that the candidates appreciate that, and these are the things that we can offer, and I think that those are the reason why somebody chose Tot respect other companies.
Since you're so successful in that, do you have any tips for these people to how you can make sure or improve the odds of having more diverse tech department?
Well, I don't know if there is a recipe apart the fact that consider the applications are at the same level, and
so avoiding biases.
Yes, and consider the bias only if you see that in comparison to CVs can be let's say a less experienced female in the CV could be comparable with a more experienced developer that is male, just because of their opportunity. I think that the main recipe is to consider them at the same level, so don't have a bias, and because it's the bias that stopped them at the beginning.
Right.
And
so hold on for a moment, because I am not sure I understood it. What you mentioned is that you have two CVs, one from women and the other from men, and even if they are not compatible, like obviously every CV is different, but what you're saying is that often women's CV, even if it's a little bit like it seems that the person is less experienced, you treat it as the same level as someone more experienced because of.
Well, it's slightly different. What I'm saying is that women CVs maybe, or women career, maybe it's more difficult because of the bias, because of less opportunities. Sure. And often you see that I see the potential to grow if they join a company that allowed them to grow. Right. And I had this feeling since probably, well, I'm not saying the beginning of my career, but from several years I had the opportunity to see women at work that started as let's say junior developers, but grew a lot and quickly because they found the right environment. And given that I felt that and I've seen that during my career, I'm pretty inclusive on that. And if any developer, if you give them the opportunity to express themselves and propose ideas and had the same opportunities to grow, I think that they can give the best they can give to the company. And so this is my feeling, and this is the reason why I
got it. I was thinking that one of the reasons is because I think I noticed it. I'm not entirely sure if it's an anecdotal evidence, so I didn't measure it in any way. But what I'm thinking is that in my career, whenever I was recruiting people, usually when these were women, I had this feeling that there was a question about something, and women didn't like when we asked them how good they are at something. Let's say hypothetically, how good are you at Typescript? So men comparing to women, what I had in my experience is that with the same level of experience, men might say like 7, and the woman would say 4.
Yeah,
even though they have exactly the same, like just hypothetically. But I had this feeling that it was the case, and it's very easy in that case to sort of you go through CV and you treat it a little bit worse because it's not as in a way bold, this CV. They don't exaggerate that much, and then you have the other CV. Of course, we are talking I'm talking statistically. Everyone is different, so it's not a golden rule. But I had the feeling that as a general thing, it is the case, and you need to. And the funny thing is that I had in my career, I worked with great women engineers, and I think that one of the best that I knew was women. And it was always the case that it was like they were a little bit shy, and you had to, over the course of their career, they had to learn to be a little bit more bold and courageous because they were not, showing all the. They were not. I think that they could be more expressive about their achievements. So that was the case in my. Have you seen the same thing? Do you have similar experiences?
Yes, I had similar cases, and Well, at the moment, I'm in a role that I can, let's say, encourage people to express themselves. In the past, I had a very, let's say, sad experience where I've seen that there was a junior developer that she was a woman, and she had let's say a master degree in mathematics or something like that, and she's very shy, and also I seen that approach to be shy and pretty she hadn't strong opinion on, for example, on the code when we had some code review and other stuff. And I think that because she was in the, let's say, a new environment and not so inclusive. I don't know, but I pushed them. I was a senior backend developer at that time, but pushed them to express herself and to don't be shy about that, and it worked. I think that I'm following her on LinkedIn now, and she's writing blog posts and other stuff about AI and new topics. So I think that she learned the right approach to be successful. So, but I agree with you that in some cases that there is this kind of bias in considering themselves, and if you are a woman, you say, okay, I want to be sincere with that. My knowledge is 4, but at the end it's 7.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and the fact that you are taking this into account, I think it's a good tip. I think it's a good tip to be mindful of that and be aware during the recruitment process. So you mentioned also these blog posts with AI. So maybe we could explore this about a little bit. So obviously AI tooling in development in general, but not only in development, is a big hype right now. So Gen AI is a thing. So every now and then, like every week, there's almost a new model or a new product or something in that space. How does it affect FinTech? Or maybe we could start from FinTech, and then maybe you could talk about thought itself. So I am wondering about 2 aspects. First is usage of the AI in the FinTech industry, and the second is development tooling. Do you see this development tooling impacting the way you work? I mean, I'm talking about the code generation, automatic reviews or things like that, anything in the area of AI assisted development.
Well, in the sector apart, I think that with Gen AI models, now AI is everything. And you have to build something with AI inside just to be cool. And but apart that, what I'm seeing is that even in Fair, I work with AI, not with LLM models, but I work with other models made within the company. What is in the past years? What changed with the new models is the interface that you use to communicate with AI. So you are now familiar. Let's say some people consider themselves familiar with AI just because they can interface with it and see the results and improve the results because they can communicate texting to a model, to a statistical model. So I think that since AI is going to be in any product, in my opinion, also in FinTech, AI is used. It was used for certain other, let's say, less popular models for fraud detection or other stuff, but now with the new models and Gen AI is used in many more scenarios. It for sure it's going to bring some innovation or some more easily automation, because at the end what I'm seeing now that the most successful processes or scenarios where AI is used is for automating the boring stuff, and it's pretty good if the problem is not so complex. And so for sure it's going to be used more and more for many aspects. Also the fraud detection systems are now starting to use LLMs because they are things that they are good enough to prevent the frauds, and it's going to, I'm not saying replace, but also use it together with other existing models that work it with other logics. Moving back to thought and to the creation of the code, I think that these tools are useful. I also use them for generating some proof of concept or parts of proof of concept, because if you know the language, you can see the difference between your approach to code to the ones that the model proposed. And also here in Thought we use some tools. We don't have a company suggested tool, but we give to the developers the possibility to use the tools that they prefer. We are in a phase where that developers are experimenting the tools, and what can I see as a leader in my role is that these tools are simplifying some steps and make them less boring, just because there is a model that but the human factor is still relevant. So we principally use those tools for generating code or editing some pull request summaries that analyze the code and make the summary to what are the changes that are pretty long. I changed this file and this file and this file. Okay, I see the changes of the pull request. I know which files did you change it.
Not very useful.
Yeah, in certain parts, yes. But I think that the human factor and the knowledge of the domain is still relevant. And so for this reason, I think that also for the upcoming years we are going to use both AI and human factor, and I don't see that it's going to replace 100% the developers, and that I also don't think that in the short term the AI is going to write the whole code for us, because we have also to consider that some parts of the code are legacy.
Right.
And I think that if the most senior developer that joined us in the company found something hard to understand according to his experience in the code, I think that also AI is challenged about that code. So I think that we are going to still need people to play the role of supervisors of the AI results. But however, the tools are evolving week by week, so of course they are going to improve. But as I said at the beginning, we are dealing with money, so we prefer to not trust a statistical model to handle the money of people.
Right. So if you were to make a bet, from what you are saying, 3 years from now, you'd say that developers would be still largely writing the code, right? The most of the code would be written by developers in 3 years.
Well, I see, or write the code or supervise the code. Yes, probably you will be able to allow an AI agent to write the code for you, but the developer should take a look, and also we have to find who is the final who is the subject responsible for the application errors or other stuff. And of course, for certain boring part, we wouldn't need developers probably anymore. So the boring monkey job, as we said, will be done by AI, but for other stuff, I think that the human factor will be still relevant. And to connect to what I was saying before, I think that knowing the domain and having an analytical approach to the domain more than the programming language will be a key factor for the new engineering personnels. So because you have the role of the engineer will be the orchestrator of AI agents and domain requirements and problem analysis, or simply the new engineer must do the job of collecting and analyzing the requirements, because at the end, if you want that AI to write the code for you, you have to provide the pretty clear and instructions. So at the end, the developer won't be replaced. Probably will change a bit their role.
It goes back to what you said about the recruitment also, that you mentioned that you are looking for good communication skills, and it sounds to me from what you're saying that if it goes that direction, communication would be even more important skill, because the clarity how you communicate your intent would be vital, as the code is generated more and more by the AI models.
Sure. Yes, you have to be pretty precise, and you have to, let's say, I don't know if you experimented a bit with prompt engineering, but you have to clearly state everything, put guardrails to prevent some certain response, adjust the parameters of the model, for example, the temperature, to prevent some hallucinations or something like that. So yes, the communication skills will be more and more important, and communicating with a model at the end.
Right. I mean, I like, and generally, we circle around this communication skill, and I liked what I think that was DHH, David Heinemeier Hansen from Base now. Basecamp, now again I think they are called 37 Signals, and he once said that writing code is still writing in a way as you would be writing prose, like a book or an article. And when you write a book or an article, clarity and the way how you communicate is obviously important, because you want people to be able to read your intentions, to understand what you are writing, not be bored along the way, so they get something from the article. And a lot of those things apply in the same way to writing code, right? Because you need to have this clarity of intent. You want your code to be readable so that people can go through it and understand. So I think there is something into this communication and being able to generally communicate well, both written and in a spoken verbal form. So going, you mentioned that also that you do experiment with POCs, generating the code for POCs. And I think what people mention, and that is also my experience, that whenever we talk about greenfield, so I got to do some POC, check some things, using various AI tools, be it Cursor or Copilot, whatever have these agentic modes, is absolutely amazing. Like for me personally, so I don't spend most of my days writing code, and in the past it was very difficult because whenever I had time and I want to do a POC, there was always a lot of this plumbing, a lot of this upfront work that you had to do. And I felt like, oh, this Friday I'm gonna have 4 hours. So I built something that I always wanted to build. And I ended up in 6 hours, realizing that I barely scratched the surface because I was connecting with some, authentication provider or deploying it or something like that, working on those things, which were not the core of what I wanted to do. So for me, this ability to use AI models for greenfield POC projects is absolutely amazing. But what I see in our company and when I talk with other people, it's that when we talk about brownfields or legacy projects, it's a different story. It's significantly, more difficult to apply and generate reasonable code. As you said about the legacy that your most senior developer have difficulties to understand. So I was wondering about you mentioned this POC, but I was wondering about your core platform, your core product. How much, of the AI developers use this? Do you see you see already some sort of efficiency gains that you could claim, like say 10% more effective or anything like that?
I don't have numbers because I don't have didn't measure that, but when it comes to the brownfield, so working with existing code, the AI can help in implementing, let's say, new features, for example, that are not so tight coupled with the existing one. But at the end, I'm seeing that at the moment, the AI just speed up the implementation because it recognizes some existing patterns in the code, or it's like a suggestion, some parts of the code. This can improve the efficiency, but what I also found is that often it helps to duplicate the code. So if there is the code yet and you duplicate that part of the code just because it worked in another part, is going to make the code less clean, as you were saying before, and so that still for the brownfield the human factor is important, is crucial. Also to validate the proposals of the AI, because AI may be, let's say, right, but the right implementation to do is to use the AI proposal to make a refactor of the existing code, not add the AI part just because it's AI, and go faster, because AI helps a lot to write a lot of code. When you don't have anything and you have to build a proof of concept, you cannot use it because you want to build something from scratch quickly. And you must consider that as a proof of concept, because if you want to engineering it, you have to spend more time. Right. But when you are in a greenfield, any single part that you add to existing code is code that you have to maintain together with existing legacy code. And so you have to use AI carefully, because it can bring to the code explosion just because you had more and more lines and files, and you have to pay a lot of attention on that. And so for the greenfield, I still prefer a relevant supervision by human.
So we talked about the recruitment, and we talked about the AI models and usage, at Thought. And I was wondering, maybe we could switch gears to a different topic, related one. So a lot of companies have, different companies have different approaches to working with external service provider or consultancies. So what companies often do is, like, some companies have their core of business. They're the most important part, the secret sauce of their platform or service. And some companies wanted to focus on that, for instance, internally, and then subcontract the other parts to some external vendors. Other companies want to have a mixture, like 80-20 or anything like that. Do you have, as a CTO we've experienced in various companies, do you have your sort of a rule book or guidebook, how to set it right? When do you work with external companies, and what are the sort of the areas that you ask them to work on if you work with external companies?
Yes, I'm still working with external companies, and so there is one size fits all, and any case is different. Few years ago, I also talked with the CEO of a company that said, for my technological part, I outsource everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Whole technology?
Yes.
Okay.
And yes, the that there were some business reasons just to be more conservative if the business is not going well. So I don't have internal resources for that part. From my perspective, I think that for a startup, when we talk about a startup, it's important. It's worth evaluating the collaboration with external companies because it's a challenge to find the right people since the beginning. Unless you found a good match among the co-founders. So there are some startups born just because there is one person that is expert on the technological part, one person about the business, and the other one about the product. Okay, let's found a startup. If you are not lucky like that, in situation like that where the lead engineer that can be the head of technology or the CTO is also the main developer because the startup was. In other cases, I think that it's useful to involve external companies, also to get the skills that you need and that you need at least time to find persons with those skills. And from case to case, this depends on the skills that you need. And I suggest the collaboration with external companies. I don't have preferences from the area. Of course, it will be useful to implement the domain logic internally with the internal team, but it doesn't mean that external companies can provide you with developers and people that can help to speed up the development of your domain. So I consider external companies also for implementing the core domain part, just because they can help. They can help with people for a limited time span, or also for long collaborations. And here in TOT we are using external companies. We used it for having a boost in the implementation of our features, and we still use it for the DevOps part. So what concerns the cloud infrastructures and other configurations. I found during the years this kind of collaborations useful, and because when you work in a startup, you are pretty focused on your product, on what you are building, and sometimes you don't have the time to have an external perspective. And more than in thought, in fair, I'm pretty sure that I had a bias to say I'm doing everything well, so focusing on what I'm doing, looking at the results from the technological part, and say, okay, this is correct. When you work with the external companies, you have expert people that can say, okay, there is also this other option that you can try. In another experience, and I'm talking about so a consultant can also show you that other examples, that other experience with other companies that they work with, and bring also not only the not only the people that can work on your project, but only the people that can bring their experiences that they had with other clients. And this can we talked about diversity. This is also about diversity on the know-how that you have in the team. With external consultancy companies, you you have people that work in many scenarios and then help you to build something from with more knowledge that is not the knowledge of the team alone.
Yeah, there are. I think that is one of the selling points of consulting or software services companies. Even when you talk with with candidates during recruitment, that you work with many different customers, with many different projects, you'll see a lot of different things. So there is some, perhaps if you work, obviously that depends on the person, but some people prefer that. Other people, as they say, they are those missionaries that they want to focus on a single product and work in it for 10 years. So I think it's a different, different character of the person. But I think you're right about this knowledge of having different customers, you can gather different perspectives, and then you can share with with your customers what you saw in different in different projects. Do you work with mostly on a time and material basis, or do you prefer sometimes some fixed price where the companies deliver, like they build something and they are responsible for the results and they deliver, like sometimes they work on it and they deliver it to you as a final project? Or do you work as a single team on a time and material basis when the companies basically work on a billable hours?
In all my experiences, apart one case that I involved one company just to implement one single part of the product, in all other cases I worked on with time material, so that people from consultancy companies were part of our teams. So they work together and they bring their know-how together with other team. I prefer to involve the external company fully on our on our product development, not delegate to them some parts, because when the collaboration concludes, then the other developers has to take care of the code. Right. So this is my approach, and this is the approach that I followed in the past, and it worked. If you want to delegate something to a consultancy, to an external company, you must be sure that that single part can be taken from an external company and has its own life.
There has to be some sort of the handover process or something like that, right?
It's required, and then it's more like if you delegate something, it's more like, okay, I take care about this part, but not so much. So let's bring this part, do that, and then I will check it at the end. I don't know. I would like to be responsible about that part too, not just delegate it and say, okay, it will go well, of course, if the collaboration is good, but at the end, even also because I worked on product companies in my recent career, any piece of code, any software components is part of your product, and they should take care the same level of others ones that are implemented by internal teams. So for this reason, I prefer always to bring external people to our teams in order to also share the knowledge, share opinions, make the internal team aware that there are other perspectives, as we were saying that, yes. So improve the internal team just because of the collaboration with external people. Yeah. This is my approach, and I really loved it. And there is another funny part about my previous company, not this one, because I hired a junior developer, and he started working with very senior developers from the external consultancy company. And when at the end, then this guy left the company, I told him, you were very lucky because you worked with very talented people since the beginning. So even that I trusted a lot the external company and also the developers that we had internally, I was pretty sure that these junior developers grew a lot because I put him to work with very talented people, senior since the beginning, and this is the right value that also external consultant can give to your company if they have the right mindset, because in other case you can have the wrong consultancy company that you have just people that write code, such as like a GenAI model. But in some lucky case, the external collaboration brings you the value.
Got it. So you are not looking exclusively or only onto the, on this working as a way to minimize costs. Some companies, what they do is like they outsource some stuff and probably they offshore it to, some cheaper, geographic areas to save some costs, right? But then I guess they are focusing on a clear, monetary value rather than the, skill or the outside perspective. That would be my thinking.
Yeah. My approach is just to. It's not about money, because you have to pay. The good people are not for free, even if they are employees or external companies. So what I look is for build something with more speed and build something good, because at the end you are, even if you are working with internal employees or an external company, you are building your product, and you must look more for quality than for let's say quantity of code. This depends also on the strategy of the company, but in general I working on companies that take care of the product because it's part of the business, and so it's not so. I think that it's not a matter of finding the external collaborators that are more cheaper, but find the external collaborators that are good for your business and to build something with high quality.
Got it. Now, when you look on the, web page or marketing materials, all the companies are the best at what they do, right? That's what every company claims. There is no company that says we are mediocre, but cheap. No one says that. Like, everyone is the best, right? And how do you look in that case for a, external company that you want to work with? If you were to need help in a specific area, like, I don't know, you said this area with these, cloud platform or cloud environment, how do you look for someone who can bring some quality to the table?
Of course, everything could start from the website. So you see some use cases of the company, and you say, okay, this is the sector close to the mine, and and this is of course the first thing that you see, and when you have to choose, you look for companies that work in your domain, because if the goal is to build the product quickly and not taking care of the money that you spend, that is also a factor, but it's not I hope that in most cases is not the more important. Having choosing a company that working in the same area it's really important, as I was saying about candidates. So the domain, the knowledge of the domain, the way that you approach to it, it's important. And then also for guaranteeing the right knowledge of the technology, you also look at the stack that those companies and those consultants worked on. Because you asked me before why you should choose for external company, and I replied because you need skills that you don't have internally at the moment. And so knowledge of the domain with the existing use case of the company, and knowledge of the technological aspects, a strong knowledge, because you pay for very talented people. You are paying for the experts that you don't have yet, and
Right.
And for the reason, those are the main factors for the decision. Then there are other aspects that are more cultural, that are connected to the way that those consultants work in your company. So if you have the external company that give you expert people, and then they just write the code and make their work without, let's say, giving more to you, could not be, let's say, the perfect situation. In my experiences, I had the opportunity to have external people that grew, that helped the company to learn, to other developers new stuff, to improve the code, to improve the know-how on the technological stack. So another thing that I consider when a company is involved is the approach of the consultants to the team. What I'm pretty open to listen them, to have their opinions, to evaluate everything that I propose, because if I was expert on their sector, I didn't need them. So in this way, I'm also really inclusive also for those people, and I consider them as part of the team, even if they're temporary. And what I look for in that case is that they can propose stuff. They suggest, as we were saying, other perspectives. They tell me more about experiments that I have with other companies with the same technology, and something like that. This is something that I value a lot, because you feel the contribution, not only for the lines of code, and this is important for the choice, in my opinion.
That's something that you verify when you start working with the company in the very first few months, right?
Yeah.
And this, you mentioned that you are looking, before you start working together, you are basically looking at the web pages, right? And materials that are published there. And I'm asking about this because that's an interesting thing. I always thought for some time that in this line of business, very few people look at the, and the published web page materials. People rely more on the word of mouth, recommendation, reference from someone else.
Yes, this is true. This is also true because where I'm working with the same company in different contexts since the 2017.
Right, sure. Yeah, when you find someone, I guess that's what people say, that when they find someone who they, work and if they work well together, they usually stick to one another, right, for a long period of time. I think that's how it is in the consulting industry. So anything that you think is do you have any guidelines for someone who is starting with working with the external company? Like if you were to give an advice to other CTO who is starting with a new company that they never worked with before, is there anything on your mind that is worth to do at the very beginning to make sure that this cooperation is kicked off well and is long-term successful?
I suggest what I do usually, and it's involve the external people in the work project. Make them as a part of the team, as I said, and listen a lot their suggestion, and also push for discussions and to look for different approaches and understand better the whole context with the external know-how, not only the internal one. This is the main suggestion. So I love to listen people when they tell something and think about what they say. So my suggestion is to make them part of the team, and I wouldn't say challenge them about the current solution, and find other possibilities to better build the product or the service. So collect any contribution that they can give and consider their contributions as part of the whole team contribution. These are the main suggestions that I would say, because probably I was lucky with my experience, but this approach worked for me in many years. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, since it's worked for you, I think, and by the way, I agree. I think it might be the way, to go. I think some companies, what they do is they put the external consultant or external, employees aside, and they don't give them full context. And I think it is very important what you're saying to involve these people from the very beginning, because usually that the cooperation is longer time anyway. Like my experience is that even if we start working for a theoretically short period of time, eventually it turns out that there is another thing to be dealt with, another challenge, another project, and the cooperation changes into the long term anyway. Yeah. You said from 2017, right?
Yes,
the cooperation.
Yes, with the same company, and at the beginning I was probably I was a senior developer or the team lead. So what I've seen at that period, given that I wrote code because I was part of the development team. I don't remember if I was yet the team lead, but I remember my first pull request when those external consultancy people joined the team. I remember something like 100 discussions on some lines of code. I say, okay, I'm here just to learn something new, and I really enjoyed that because I've seen a great seniority from external people, and I learned a lot, and this helped me in the following years. And this is the approach that worked, and this is the way that I suggest, because I learned a lot when I was a developer, and from external people mainly, because in my team there was.
Got it. So maybe going into a little bit different direction is you had this interesting story that you worked at Fair AI, the company that you co-founded, but then you joined taught as a CTO, and company was already established, so the engineering team was there. Could you tell us maybe a little bit about, you know, characteristics or challenges that you are facing when you are joining as a, you know, CTO, so the most senior technical, you know, leader in the organization that is already, you know, that is already established and that already has an engineering team and that already have a, you know, specific stack and technology selected?
Well, it was a challenge, and but a good challenge, because as you said, yeah, in 2020 I founded a startup, and as a co-founder I was the first developer, and the situation that I told you before, where the co-founders have different skills and you can build something from scratch with the co-founders. And I built my own team, the culture and everything from scratch, and it was amazing. And it was also error prone, because you are new and you are the only one that you feel the failures and
Right.
you are also the cause of the failures sometimes, and but you learn a lot. And you also, when if you are a good leader, because I was the sorry, I have to drink water.
Sure.
When I was saying that when you are a good leader, so people can see you as a leader since the beginning, because also you hired them. And
Right.
I'm talking about the technical team, and I worked with very skilled people, and I suggested my way of thinking about code, the culture, the, let's say, attention to automatic code, testing, and other stuff. And it was a great experience. When I moved to Tot, I I was sure that it would be different, even just because not only the people but also the code. I'm not so skilled with Typescript and functional programming. So my contribution, given that in a startup also the CTO contributed to the code in certain way, was could be less than in the previous experience. But what I've seen since the beginning is that you had to join a new environment with new people or new existing codes with legacy code that and a different culture. Those are the challenges. The challenges you have to learn how the company works, and you have to prove that you can lead the technological part. You must get the trust from other developers, and this is the main challenge, in my opinion, because you have other people should recognize you as the right people for that role. So in this case, the CTO, and they must accept you, and so yes, these are challenges, and I think that I faced them by listening and learning from looking at how the company worked, and looking at listening to the people, the developers, looking at the code, and starting reviewing the code or trying to understand all the stuff, and I think that I try to face those challenges of starting a new experience with an established company. I would like to say that I don't want to say that. I don't know if it looks that I express or show only challenges, but to me, for my personal growth, I think that this experience means a lot, because when you build something from scratch, also the team, everything is more easy. It's also easy to fail and make your mistakes and build your knowledge.
And by easy, you mean that it's easy because you understand what is there, right? You have this intimate knowledge.
Because it's something like you have a green field. So as for the code, you don't have also the people, and you can say, okay, I want the people of this kind of people. I like this developer. I like that one, and so for certain points of view, it's easier. But I think that for a CTO, it's also important to work on an established company, even if it's a startup. So we are not so many. There is not huge hierarchy, and we are agile. But I like this change.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that a leader should do in his or her life at least once.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recipes or guidelines that you learned along the way? Because you mentioned this build that is important to build trust. Do you have some guidelines how CTOs joining the established companies can build that trust as soon as possible?
Well, I don't know if there is a recipe. It depends a lot on the people that you find. I think that in these cases, you have to recognize the people you work with. So depending on the people that you work with, you have to deal with a different approach. And there are, for example, good technicians. You can get the trust from them only if you propose something that they don't know, or you propose a better approach and they recognize that you are skilled on that. Mm-hmm. For other different peoples, I think that other approach works better, so less technical. So let's say I'm able to understand your domain and communicate with you about the domain, make questions, be interested about that, and contribute with my ideas, and they appreciate. I think that there isn't a general recipe. What I found useful for me and here in Tot is to since the beginning I was as I was saying that start listening for other people, and let's take care of all the aspects in my role, so the technological part but also the product one. So understand how the product works and understand all the requirements, constraints, etc. I worked in the same industry in the past, but I wasn't an expert. So let's start understanding how banking for small and medium enterprises work in Italy. And so the main recipe is to get trust in the way that other people give you trust. So for technicians, it's better to show that you are good enough to propose something new and teach something, etc. Or also accept other perspectives and try discuss different opinions and something like that. For people that are more interested about let's say soft skills aspects, just for me the communication is all, and it's the understanding of the project and the culture is really important. So the effort is the effort should go in the direction of be accepted by the team, and this works at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
yes.
So, there's some people, there's this thing that, I don't know, when new official takes the office and they start their tenure, there's sometimes something called 100-day plans or things like that. It also is something that some CTOs or directors quote, like there is the 3-month plan on what you have to do as you join a new company, or as you start when you are promoted, for instance, as a, I don't know, CTO or CEO. What do you think about, is there something like in your mind, is some sort of the game plan that you had when you were starting at Tot, things that I have to do, in my first 100 days? Is there something like that you might be, willing to share?
Well, I know, and I know this concept of 100 days, and I didn't have the opportunity to put that in place because I got overwhelmed by new stuff, and by nature I was, let's say, pretty active and be involved as much as possible since the beginning. So I even didn't take a long break before leaving the previous job. So I was really active and say, okay, I'm ready to do something. However, I don't have any kind of fixed recipe. My suggestion is to take the time to listen and learn the company, because you are entering in a new environment, and it might not be the good fit for you, and you might not be the good fit for the company at the beginning, because okay, of course you had the opportunity to talk with other C-levels, maybe the technical leads. In my case, I had a very pleasant conversation with both front-end and back-end leaders, but the first days you have to listen and understand, and try to and behave as a newcomer. So you have to enter in the company, and not to say I want to say that, I want to do that, or something, some stuff like that. So the recipe for me is that enter and listen until you are able to contribute. Because if you don't know anything in other contexts that I know, because I have some colleagues that talk with me, ex-colleagues that talk with me, there is the first 100 days of CTO is to change the technical leadership, change people or something like that. And it doesn't work, in my opinion, because if something worked well for 3 or 4 years, and the company has customers that use the service and use the product, it means that it works. And so you have to learn something and listen for opinions, and learn a lot. Listen this process until you are expert, and you're almost at expert, because in 100 days you cannot be an expert of something new unless you worked on a competitor in the same market. And when you feel you are ready to contribute. So make your plan and start proposing small improvements, changes, suggestions, and make a plan for the more strategical and with more impact on the company. So this is my general suggestion. I don't know if there is also a bias because of my previous career or also my academic studies, but I really love to learn a lot before changing something or propose big changes or even small changes, because you are there is an ecosystem that it works, and you are a new part, and you should know the ecosystem before saying, okay, I move this piece and everything will work. No, you don't know if it works, and you must learn before if that move is correct or not.
That's extremely reasonable. I mean, like, I think my question, like this 100 days, it automatically, the action plan for 100 days sort of assumes that you, as you mentioned, that you want to do something, that you should do something, that you should make a change, that you have probably a bold change, like you said, like, changing the technology, leadership or direction. And what you suggest is in fact quite opposite. And I like it, right? I think that we often forget that, it's sometimes, it's worth to learn and understand before you start making some, action or introducing any changes to the system. You mentioned, the company was working for some time, so probably, it has some, internal structures and things, how they work. It's probably better to learn first how things work. And only then, when you get this understanding, start thinking about introducing the changes. So
yeah, I think that this is the right approach, and I think that's also a similar approach. I demand that from also people that I hire. So learn how it works before proposing something new, or maybe that should be from certain senior, let's say, engineers. This approach should be understood, because otherwise you are saying, okay, I'm able with Java, I want to introduce Java, and I don't care if we use Typescript, Java is better. You don't know, you have to learn before if everything works, which are the challenges, which are the pros and cons. And this is a general approach that I apply also for other roles, and it's what I expect from people that enter in a new context.
Got it. So if you were to give 3-4 sentences of advice to a new CTO at the company, apart from this, learn first how things work, is there something on your mind, like 3-4 sentences of advice for someone who starts a new CTO role?
Well, pretty easy. Be friendly. I think that's given that you must be welcomed by other people, you have to be friendly. And even if you are a leader, you have to have open conversations with others. And then meditate before changes. This is another phrase that I can say. And take the time to understand stuff. And the last one, probably act quickly. When you have all the elements to make a strategy, make a good proposal, a strong proposal, and you have the trust of people, just act, because they will appreciate that you took a decision that they agree with, and you can move faster.
Yeah, in a way, It actually sounds like a good life advice in general. The things that you mentioned, like if you in general context. So yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty useful. So Gilberto, it was very great to have you here. I enjoyed the conversation with you immensely. I don't know about the future in other topics, but it sounds to me like there are probably also other topics that we could maybe discuss in the future. I would really like that if it happens. So thank you for being with us and sharing your experiences.
Thanks to you. I really loved to answer your questions. Pretty interesting. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.